Okay, so our next topic: should DNA testing be mandatory at birth for fathers? Why do you rub me on hands together?
I want to hear it. I want to hear this.
This is a good topic.
Let me cross my legs.
Well, the time that we're living in right now, I think that if certain states want to make it, because there's a bill and that becomes a law.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times I don't know if they're married, should it be mandatory? Because that's like, that's when your relationship being married is no longer under God. That's when your relationship becomes, what's that called? Your relationship actually becomes
like a property of the state.
Property of the state. So
like
it's kind of like weird if it's like if you're married, you have to, because there's certain things that if you're married you don't have to do, opposed to if you're single and you have a kid. So I think if you're married, I don't think that it should be mandatory that you have DNA testing.
I think that
it's a little insulting.
If we're gonna talk about, if I take myself out of the thought of relationships, right, and really look at it from the vision of medical, right? Like, let's say this kid grows up and something happens and he becomes sick and maybe something happened to the dad along the way and dad's not alive anymore. Going and pulling up those records would be very key and essential to that child's future. So for even that purpose, I would say yes. I think it's very essential.
Since we have the science that actually shows, because back in the day we didn't have science to actually have DNA to test certain things.
Correct.
And then we didn't have science to test to see if like
what's happening in the body.
In the body, we didn't have the science to know if somebody committed a murder.
There we go.
We didn't have the science to know if
we didn't have none of that.
Committed him.
Oh, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah, that word. And we didn't have the science to know if if the child was yours. I'm trying to think of something else we didn't have the science.
Bones, we didn't have this within the
but
bones
having
and
the
the marrow.
science. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
No, so I think some of this has come about because Tennessee passed House Bill 2689, which is maternity fraud, and it's a new law in the state of Tennessee which requires DNA testing prior to a man's name being added to the birth certificate. It says other states have similar bills pending, and it says it also provides for stiff fines and jail time.
Woo!
So,
oh wow!
Yeah, so
want to talk about accountability?
Yeah, so I don't know. You know what? I really don't know how to. I feel like it should be at the discretion of the parents.
The parents.
Even if you're married, I mean, it could be at the discretion. I really don't. Honestly, I really don't know how to.
Because it crosses such a barrier.
It's like I don't want to put nobody's business out there. You know what I'm saying? But I know instances where
we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
I think.
Did you go to my high school?
It needs to be.
No. So I think it needs to be at the discretion of the parents. Okay. And I feel like if it's a waiver that a man signs and he feels that it's his child and come to find out that it's not his child in the future, then it's like, well, you signed this waiver. We gave you the opportunity and the chance to
in that moment.
Yeah. Yes. So that's how I look at it. I feel like if it's something I'm trying to figure out if it's something real serious or misleading where a person should be fined.
I can think of some scenarios.
Because some people know. Some people already know.
Yeah.
And they already know they're already I do think that maybe it should be mandatory. It's a thin line.
Maybe if you are not committed, right? But you two came in together, right? Yeah. Or maybe if you're not married and you're like, hey, we just need this for documentation purposes, then yes.
And not to try to be funny, but there's a lot of women that get over on stuff like that, and they've been for years and years. Go ahead.
Now let me say. Now, what if we married and I go to the doctor and I'm like, hey, I want my child to be tested, but I don't want the mother to know.
But as a parent, you can do that.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. A lot of grandmothers do that.
Yes.
Like there's been grandmothers that test themselves and test a kid.
Yes.
And like that kid don't look like you.
Yep.
And then come to find out it's because you could test it
with the
you could test it through the grandmother to find out that ain't really.
You could do that too.
And then people like, that's an evil grandma. No, grandmother just knew.
Grandma know.
Grandma just knew.
Grandma
I
know.
think like that's like a real. Oof.
Yeah, there's men that do that because the child is 50-50.
Yeah.
So for just as much as the mother is in control, the father is in control. So he
You
can
know,
go to the doctor.
you know what's funny? One of my friends, he was talking about, back in the day when people stayed together.
Yeah,
my grandmother,
for sure.
My grandmother and grandfather was married for years and years. My grandfather had 15 kids.
Yes.
15 kids, and 13 was like my grandmother's or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's 13. That's alleged.
We're just throwing numbers
Yeah,
out.
throwing numbers. But one of my friends was like, what if they did DNA back then? Some of them kids might be your grandfather.
Okay.
That's like for my grandmother.
Okay.
I'm talking about like a lot of scenario with like a lot of people.
I ain't even gonna talk about my family.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
I get it.
Because you ever seen a family where back in the day where auntie and everybody 3 different colors?
Now listen, I will say this though. Listen to this. This was crazy. So my family, my mother's family, my mother is one of 10, right? And my grandparents were doing the whole tribe of kids thing, right, together. And my grandfather was mixed. So when you say that, that's how my family is. All of my aunts and uncles are like a rainbow. They're like from this shade all the way over to this shade, but everybody looks the same.
That's funny because my grandfather was mixed.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And he was black and white, had like gray
Yep.
looking eyes. But what's funny is, what did my cousin say when he saw you? They all different colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
But now that they're getting older, you could tell they brothers and sisters, they all look like him. They all look like him.
Yep. Oh, you'll see the bloodline right through. So when that grandmama look at that baby and say, our baby ain't had no red ears on the top and it was curled under the bottom. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Let's get the test.
Man, it was some stuff going on back in the day,
Yeah,
back in the day.
It's a lot of shook in the jive, and I tell you that.
So I feel like it should just be at the discretion.
Of the
Discretion
parents.
of the parents.
Yeah, that's fair.